I've got great news.
Great
I have
news.
lined up 3 sponsors for us.
Whoa.
It all happened really fast.
Uh-huh.
So first, I'm going to tell you the good news. We have 3 sponsors. The bad news is they're not paying us anything. So
I think that means they're not sponsors, right? Like, are we getting something in kind?
Well,
What are we
maybe
getting?
in kind. I think this might be like you remember that freaky looking pig that you would see in low traffic parts of your town on billboards. He was trying to tell you it's funny.
No.
I think it's one of those situations. No, all kidding aside, some people reached out about us being media sponsors of some DevOps days. DevOps days and
Dazen.
Dazen. That's how you say it, right? Is that Swedish? And it's so we're media sponsors for Chicago, Seattle, and once I email someone, Minneapolis, which I think is the hardest word except for Poughkeepsie to spell in the English language. So what this means, so first of all, if you haven't been to a DevOps Days, you should just do that.
You should.
Yeah, just go to one. I went over and I tweeted this. I took a screenshot of all the cities that they're in, and they're just everywhere. Yep. I think there's even one in maybe like Tyler or something.
Wow. I submitted a talk to DevOps Days Austin today.
Oh, I need to do that. Yeah. So far, I haven't heard anything about the Jumbotron sponsorship, but it's still, we got a lot of time.
Still there for Pivotal.
So, I think what this means is one.
Or a media sponsor.
Oh, maybe we could be a media sponsor. See, that I was thinking it would be nice to do some live recordings because that seems like a thing one does.
We'll be there.
But we would be at the Austin, I think all 3 of us. What do we get for Chicago, Seattle, and Minneapolis? What do you get, the listener? One, you get to know that there's some co-support of great communities. This humble community we have and those much more bigger, more important communities than us. we got like some signage and shit. And I think I think they'll give us 1 free pass to each of them. So here's what I propose, gentlemen. Tell me what you think. Oh, and we'll get some code that you can use when you register to get 20% off. We don't have any of those yet, but stay tuned.
Coming soon.
So we'll get a free pass so you can go to Chicago, which I think is in August, and Seattle, which is not in August, and Minneapolis, which is also not in August.
Way to narrow it down.
just in case you want to know about August. But we're going to get 1 free pass, and I think here's what I think we should do. We should have a contest where you email us at devopsdays@cote.wtf, and you tell us why we should give you the pass. That's it. Tell us which one you want. And, you can write a 50-page essay or 1 line, or you could just send like a picture, whatever you like. And we will completely subjectively select some winners to give the free passes to. Now, we will try our best to give the passes to people who actually wanted to go to the cities they're in. But I don't, there's a lot of asterisks here. I can't say what's going to happen.
Tell us what city you want the pass for.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
And then, Cote, I don't know if everyone got the email address. So, one, are we going to put the email address in the show notes?
Oh, of course. So, I would like to toot my own horn. We have extensive show notes that everyone should check out. There's lots of bonus links in there that we don't get to cover in the show. Like I think this week, it will feature a recording of Matt Ray talking about configuration management. So if your loved one, your partner, or maybe next time you're at Thanksgiving and you just want to shut down the entire room, pop that on the TV. It'll be like that chemical in the turkey leg that makes everyone go to sleep.
Exactly. You'll be like, what's wrong with all these people's accents?
That's right. Are these people English? I don't understand.
No, they're not. No, it's better than that. It's Australian.
Well, I just want to let you guys know that I was in San Francisco this past week for RSA, but I had a chance, an encounter with someone from Apple that is in the know on the podcast app. Won't say anything because I know Apple's super secret. So I, of course, have many ideas of enhancements for the podcast app. And I want to tell all the listeners that I made some compelling cases to add many of these features. And afterwards, I am almost 100% sure none of these things will be added. So I just want to let you know that the podcast app as it is right now, It's pretty much going to be the way it is. That was my one roadmap update for Apple. Like if you like what you have now, you're in a good shape. So,
I was talking with my wife Kim. She uses the podcast app, and I was telling her like we're on the family thing, and I bought Overcast a long time ago, so you should use that. And she's like, "Why?" This podcast app works well. And I think she actually said something along the lines of, "Well, don't you think the app that shipped with the phone would be the best?" and
right now we should just pause because I think there are listeners that are hearing that and that are maybe just spit up some milk. That's like such a civilian statement. Like, oh, absolutely, the software that comes with the computer. I mean, it's not like the Windows stuff that they is not always perfect. It's
that Zune shit's pretty tight, like we used to say back in high school.
It's really good. Like you never want to go to a third party when
now Cote, I fear for your wife's safety. She uses Apple Maps driving. I mean,
Apple Maps.
Oh yeah, she uses Apple Maps. No doubt.
She's lost a lot. She has lost a lot.
I bet you miss her.
No wonder we're always late.
Waze, I'm telling you guys, everyone. Early pick Waze. Everyone get Waze. It's the only way to.
Have you seen this, Brandon? I've noticed some podcast, like the Incomparable in Overcast, they have like little chapter markers in the show notes. I don't know if that's like an Overcast thing or a podcast thing. I don't know what that is. Now, of course, I
have seen that, and I can assure you that is not part of the podcast app. And again, I did a lot of research, and I'm pretty sure that's not going to get added in the podcast app. So, I did. Because I did. I mean, I think I had some very good arguments. This was not a quick conversation. Because when I get to talk podcast app, I have a lot to say. And again, I'm very sure none of that will be added.
So did you talk to like the product manager for that application? And he's like, "That's all some good feedback. There's no developers."
Yeah. So I think the story kind of goes like this. It was like, Brandon, have you seen how many iPhones that we sell? I was like, yes, I am aware of that. Have you seen how much money we make? I was like, yeah, I do know that. And then he's like, do you know we have this thing called Apple Music? I was like, yeah. Do you know how much money that makes? I was like, yep. And then Macs. He's like, do you know how many Macs we sell? And I was like, yep. And he's like, do you know how much money we make on podcasts? And then I was like, oh, okay, got it. So yeah, you're not. Yep, that's not high on the list. Got it.
Well, they should have some sort of. This is like here I am, like Hugh McLeoding it or whatever that micropayment guy is. But like, was it Hugh McLeod? No, he's the guy who draws stuff. Who's the guy who did the Understanding comic books? Anyone? Okay. Anyways, like they should have some sort of like give these people money button. Like that would like they can take 30% of that. Hell, they could take 70%. I don't know.
But this is like zero. The brutal reality. Sometimes even I need it, right? It's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. You're like, because we all work at, different size corporations, but they all work generally the same. It's like, well, wait a minute. We're making a lot of money doing this thing over here. And we make a lot of doing that, and we pretty much want to continue to just do that. And we're not necessarily looking for lots of new things that we haven't that aren't proven, that aren't easy to do, that aren't in our core baseline of where we make money, which I get. I like, okay, yeah.
What do they call that? The law of attractive profits?
Yeah.
The old,
I think that's why product managers are known universally as Debbie Downers. They're like, those are good ideas. Yeah.
See, but this is a whole nother thing I have. Like the word product manager, like, let me tell you what there are. There are two parts of creating products. There are people that are entrepreneurs that are creating a new product. That's kind of what people think product managers are. Product managers in any large organizations are product janitors, right? Like you just have this thing that exists, right? That could be so much better. And you hear all day long about all the things that would make it better, but you're incapable of actually getting those things into the product, which I could now tell you for the next 3 hours, I could just go on and talk about why. But they just assume that I am right. And that's where it's like, hey, but again, once you're in it, you're like, you see the machine, you're like, yes, the machine is set up like this to prevent. But that's why we should recommend Overcast, right? Because is that Marco or not? Who writes that?
Yeah.
That's Marco's, right? It's like
that guy.
He's super passionate. He's gonna make a great app. He's working on it all the time. He's getting paid something off of that. So hopefully, maybe one day someone will buy that and integrate it as the core
and
app.
then they'll park all development.
They will, but like at least it'll be the default. The default will be at least that, and then Marco will probably go out and then write the same app again and sell it to Google, right?
Whoa! This isn't enterprise software.
That's that's probably what he will do when the Google podcast thing comes out, which is like imminent, from what I hear.
No, that reminds me. I saw some tweet earlier today, as you do, and it was something like, "Here's instructions for importing your blog into Medium," and then I was thinking, "Oh my God, I didn't even realize it. They're just reinventing Blogger.com again. Why does this keep happening?"
Because
by
you
the
can.
same guy, Ev Williams, same exact.
Yeah,
Although I will say, Medium much better than Blogger, just better.
Yeah, I mean, talk about like.
Because why, Matt Ray? Because who bought a Blogger? Google, and Google doesn't make any money from it, and they park development, right? So it's like, we have seen this before.
Yep.
Well, speaking about new things, what's up with unikernels, Matt Ray? I have had my buddy Andrew Schaefer explain unikernels to me, and it's sort of like, yep, sounds great. It sounds like yet another way of doing computing that, like, why was it not always done this way? Other than, needing to be invented. But it so what are these unikernels? What's going on here?
I like the transition. So unikernels are single purpose operating systems that run a single application. So when people start talking about things like Docker, they're still talking about a dedicated operating system.
Now, is this like Windows that I get to run Office? Is that the idea?
No. This would be like,
Sorry, that was a bad joke.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that was terrible. No. I mean, the idea being you'd have an operating system that runs nothing but maybe the JVM. There's a unikernel out there that underlies the JVM, and you can run a Java application, and it doesn't have a user land. You don't get a shell and a whole bunch of other tools. You just run your application, and the idea being it runs more efficiently, has less attack surface. It's safer and faster, I guess. And there's been some upswing in their popularity recently. And the folks at Docker bought unikernel systems, I think is what it was called, a couple months ago.
That's right.
Yeah, and then
we should tee up. You should explain to me what this Tatum O'Neill thing they're doing is. Tatum?
I don't think that has anything to do with Tatum O'Neill.
But it's called Tums, right? Tutum? Common?
Yeah, it was an acquisition they made last year.
Okay.
It was. Man, you just got me like keyed up on like tangent to tangent. Tutum was a.
We can come back to it. We'll put it in the parking lot.
Okay.
I just wanted to. I have all these means to take notes and keep track, but I just wanted to interrupt you.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so Docker bought unikernel systems, and people. There's been an upswing recently in unikernels popularity among people who probably don't run them in production. But they're very big on
obviously not product managers.
Yeah. Very big on the academic side. And Docker bought the company that makes unikernel systems, which was a lot of former Zen.
Academic was one of my favorite hip hop artists in the 90s.
So Matt Ray, tell me, how does it work? How do you package one up? Like, how does it even do you?
Well, you essentially have to compile your application into the kernel, and then package up this fully self-contained operating system. So
it's like an exe file, basically. Right?
Well, it's an exe that you boot.
Yeah.
And is there like a unikernel appliance that these things run in, or do you run them?
No, they would run straight on the operating system. I mean, on the bare metal or on the hypervisor, or whatever pretends to be a actual physical machine.
I think per usual, to play a little bit of Brandon here, we can expect Joyent to come out with some product with a bunch of fanfare that no one.
No. See that?
And then after that, there'll be people who are like saying how it's not a good idea, but there'll be the reverse people of who currently think containers are a good idea, and then it'll turn out that it works out well. It's fine.
You got a little sideways. Actually, Joyent, Brian Cantrell, the CTO for Joyent, posted a big blog article about
Oh yeah, that's right.
why unikernels are a terrible idea.
Yeah, yeah.
And essentially, he got down to the point of for operations. For operations, you're taking a packaged black box and throwing it into production. Like, how do you debug that? How do how do you measure performance? How do you get logging out of it? How do you do the things that operators care about a box? And his point was kind of like, hey, containers are good enough. Don't go any deeper, because then you can't. Then you just have black boxes, and you don't. You can't see what's going on inside the box.
It kind of feels like it's just rebranding embedded systems, right?
Oh, it totally is. It totally
like, because this has been, you would just say like, hey, if you had some device where like, you just need it to run on the device and you don't really expect to maintain it, like you throw it out or whatever, like that seems like a good use of this, but it doesn't seem well. And maybe that would make it easier, like the world of IoT. If we ever know what IoT, if we never actually figure out what that meant, if maybe in that world it would make sense.
It makes sense in that world, and the debugging angle is definitely the hard part. And there's kind of a point of diminishing returns once you get beyond like embedded Linux and containers. It's like, how much smaller do you need to go? Because you can say, oh, but unikernels are faster. It's like, we're already talking about hundreds of milliseconds. Humans don't notice that. For boot times. But recently on our friend's podcast, the DevOps Cafe, friend of the show, John Willis, was the guest. Not only the host, but they were turning the mic facing inward, as it will, and he talked about unikernels. And at first I was thinking about the things that Brian Cantrell had said about operability, and he was discussing Docker's acquisition of unikernel systems, and he talked about the faster deployment time, going from VMs to, Docker is like going from, 8 minutes to 8 seconds, or, even, and how much faster do you need to get? And that didn't really sell it for me. I'm like, unikernels, how much faster do you need to get?
I feel like we should just channel some inner MBA here and just go to our basics. Like, what's the job to be done? Like, what problem is that? Like, just go back to that. Like, I don't know. I mean, it seems like a cool technology, but like, I'm feeling, other than embedded systems, that's what I was just trying to think of myself. Like, what's a good job to be done? Plus, the guys at Docker, they're just drunk with money, right? It's like, why not? Like, it could be good. Like, maybe they'll figure. It's like, this could hit. Probably wasn't that expensive. Like, all right, they're smart guys. They can work on Docker too.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like something that's probably years away from being something more mainstream, and people are already having a hard enough time digesting containers as a thing.
Well, I think so much to write a thing is like, what's the unit of compute we want to work with? Because didn't we talk about Lambda last week, where it's like, that's like a single, because that's like yet another even smaller like unit of compute. Now we got unikernel, then we got the Docker, we have the containers, we have the VMs, we have the operating systems themselves, processes. I mean, you just it's like, what does everyone want to work on? That's really the question we're trying to ask.
Well, Lambda would really map to processes. It's just you're throwing a command into a system and it runs it, and you don't really care that there's no operating system attached to that.
Isn't that kind of the same thing as unikernel? Like, you're just kind of embedding it, you're just throwing it out there, and you don't really care what's.
Yeah, well, Lambda's not necessarily long-lived. So it could be like, run run this query and give me the result. That's kind of how Lambda behaves.
Well, in general, a unikernel is more efficient, right?
Oh yeah.
It has less of a footprint of install. It takes a shorter amount of time to get up and running. And in theory, like, it doesn't need as much compute power because it only has exactly what it needs. Like, you strip away all the stuff that it doesn't need.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, usually like a technology like that, what that means is it drives down the cost of hardware, which, then enter Jevons paradox, which means like you just come up with new ways that it was previously wasteful to do things in this way, but now it's not wasteful. And so now you have flying cars or whatever, right? Like,
yeah, but is there a point of diminishing returns?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure
prognosticate.
I'm sure some listener is yelling out like, you'll never need more than 64K of RAM, right? Like we always think that like we're done and we don't need more, but sure. I mean, what if I wanted to run 50 parallel processes doing the same thing for some reason, right? Like, I mean, that sounds asinine right now, but like if
people do that with Docker all the time.
Yeah. Anyways, I don't know. I don't have with the back. Remember the back of the tech magazines? Oracle was always up there with like we run faster on Spark and stuff, and other people like those are fun benchmarks. I don't know what the benchmarks are, but like if any infrastructure technology is efficient in the area of getting up and running with it, running it, or managing it, if you have any efficiency in any of those three, you got a thing. Right.
Yeah.
And if you have efficiency in two or more of them, then you win. Right. And this is one of the reasons people like Docker so much is it has efficiency in getting up and running. And I haven't really seen any studies, but I would assume there's some efficiency in running it as well. I mean, all the big cloud providers run stuff in containers, including us, even though we're not a provider, because it's more efficient to run compute in that way. So that's why containers are great, is because they're efficient on at least two of those angles.
Yeah,
I would say though.
So,
I mean, there is.
I mean, who knows what it'll be used for? But and then in theory, it's more secure, right? Because if I remember the way a unikernel is created, it basically, and I don't know if this is possible if you're using a dynamic language, but it somehow executes all the paths that you would need or something. I'm speaking about.
Oh yeah, I mean, like.
But like. In theory, it reduces your attack surface, which makes you more secure in that area.
Yeah. I mean, I did some embedded Linux stuff, a long time ago, and it booted straight to the application, and that's all it did. All the ports were closed. There was no shell. It's kind of nice.
Maybe it could finally make printing software fucking work consistently. That would
just compile that stuff right into the kernel.
I'm going to print out a unikernel with my dot matrix printer.
Yeah. But how did we get on this tangent?
I asked you about unikernels. And then,
okay.
And then you were all like, why do I need that if I got the Docker? And then here we are.
Okay.
And then suddenly I was like the future optimist.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was, before listening to John's interview, I was more pessimistic than I am today. I think it's kind of like he made the analogies that when Docker first landed, it was a hot mess. I mean, it was like, this is awesome, but how do you run this stuff in production? And they slowly fix things like standardized logging and
Sure.
service registries and how you deploy multi-node deployments and security. It's getting fixed, and unikernels will probably take a longer time to bake, or maybe they don't. I don't know, but it's more promising than I had thought previously. So there, your sprinkle of optimism for me, the software.
Well, I'm just trying. That's all I can do, Matt Ray.
Yeah, but I don't see it sparking a return to the data center.
A return to the data center.
Yeah.
The private cloud.
Yeah, the private cloud, if you will.
What's up with the uptick in chatter about that nonsense recently? Like all of a sudden there's another. Did like Matt Assay write some article that was talking about the myth of the private cloud or something, and then everyone felt the need to talk about it again? Like, have you noticed that? Or is that just?
Well, he probably. I mean, this is not an attack on Matt Assay or anything. I was just gonna say,
proceed.
Sorry, he's probably talking. He or other reporters and analysts are talking to vendors who have a desire for this to be a thing, and so the more they hear it, the more likely they are to give it some wind, or some breathing.
Private cloud, that is.
Yeah, private cloud. It's like IBM and Cisco and VMware and people who still expect things to be run on premise have a vested interest in stories out there getting the word out that on premise is a thing. So we talked. There was a interesting article on the Register, interview with the CTO at Cisco, who was they heard to remark, the emergence of containers will spark a renaissance for on-premises data centers, thus luring many businesses away from public cloud services.
Now is this? I see his name here. Just to be clear, I have not read this article yet. But is this Beery who headed up cloud at HP? Oh yeah. That guy threw an awesome party at the San Diego OpenStack event.
A lot of big enterprise companies with a lot of deep pockets. They throw some kicking parties, and
I have to. I should put a link to this. He had one of the more phenomenal at the time cloud strategy presentations there. It was very audacious. There was a lot. Some poor minion like I was at the time at the company I worked at had to go to Google Images and search for a lot of logos, right? Like I've been through that. I'm sure we've all done this, where you just you got the logo slide and you spend 30 minutes searching for logos, and you're like, why the fuck don't people post good logos of themselves, right?
Google.
Yeah, I think there are two grossly underappreciated great cloud strategy presentations I've seen that I'll mention here. First one was at maybe VMworld 2010 or maybe 2011. It's like the last year that I went when I was at RedMonk.
2014 when I presented.
Yeah. That one is not underappreciated. That one is very much so appreciated. These ones are like forgotten through
just right.
And that I think they had the VMware CTO giving this talk, and I think he works at Red Hat now. But this is the era where VMware had ESX and also like Prezi. Remember that? This is like the full gradient of the absurdity of their portfolio. And they had just launched Project Octopus or something, which was a Dropbox competitor. And they still have VDI. They had virtual desktops. They were just like, it was sort of like it was like a successful Citrix, just like a portfolio that would like blow your mind in its incongruity. But through a series of like whiteboard things and Post-it notes, like done up very artfully. What was this guy's name? He pulled it all together.
Wow.
And it was, and also at the time, I think Cloud Foundry was there, just being kind of incubated. I think that Cade Metz article about the first generation of Cloud Foundry people had just come out around this time, it was a really good presentation because he kind of linked it all together. It was basically the cloud pitch that everyone was trying for back then. And I'll make a loud noise so everyone wakes up from Grandpa's old tales here pretty soon. But like the pitch everyone was doing back then is like, everything's changing and we will be your one-stop shop for everything from knowledge working to infrastructure. And they had it all pulled together there for a while. It looked good in the slides. The second one was this OpenStack Summit one that Beery gave, and I'm pretty sure it was San Diego. And it was equally like all-inclusive and good, and it made sense. And is the kind of thing where you're like, looks like a lot of awesome slides.
But the thing is, like, those slide decks sometimes land in people's heads. They're like, I want that.
Clearly, they landed in my head.
Yeah. You're like still longing for VMware circa 2010.
Yeah. Man, it was awesome. It would like sync. I mean, basically, they had an answer for what's the tool chain that everyone uses, right? Let's kind of throw out the computer developer, right? You're going to have file sharing. So you're either going to have Box or Dropbox, maybe use OneDrive, who knows? And then you're going to be using Google Apps or Office 365. And then you want to use all this on your mobile device and your laptop phone. And then you also want to run all your stuff as a SaaS if you have your own infrastructure. And you also want to, you got a bunch of old shit you got to do over a virtual desktop. And then you want to manage your usage of SaaS. I mean, again, this is like CloudThink 2010. And that's pretty much what all of us do nowadays.
Yeah.
Like all those things. And we still, I think you could go to Microsoft and buy all of that.
Yeah.
And you could conceivably go to Google and buy all of that.
You could get a lot of it from Amazon now.
Yeah. And you can definitely go to Amazon and buy all of it. But I don't think people do that.
No, I think people pick and choose from the best.
Yeah, like I mean, if you're like me, you're always fucking switching accounts in this Google thing because I can't figure that kind of stuff out from like a thumb in their ass or whatever the phrase is. Oh my god, that stuff. At least it works nowadays. It used to be a total shit show, but like multiple IDs with Google is marginally okay.
I think Slack took over. Slack clearly learned from Google on how to do that too. So
Yeah.
it's awesome.
We'll give you a terrible interface in another way.
So Slack's launching video and telephone or video and voice.
Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yet another
Good
video
news,
voice.
everyone.
I know. Maybe as long as we can, record it, maybe that'll slowly displace Zoom. But I kind of like Zoom.
Yeah, they should just buy Zoom and then do the old URL scheme to pop it up. Like, isn't it amazing that never works? Right? Like what?
I think they bought Screen Hero. So there were, they already had or was that HipChat? I don't know who owns everything.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like Slack bought someone, but yeah, they really do need some talking with each other nonsense.
It's coming soon to a talking near you nonsense.
Well, that's great.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
So you're not buying the containers are going to bring everyone back into the data center vision, huh?
Well, from what I can tell, people like to go both ways, as the Scarecrow said. I don't know. I mean, like at the moment, like Pivotal's business model, like for a long time, we tried to sell public cloud purely, and that wasn't paying the bills. And so now we sell private cloud, and that pays the bills. I mean, you sell what people buy. I think was that Adam Smith or that who was that guy? Riccolo, Mr. Competitive Advantage with the Portuguese winemakers and the English folks. Like I think that's a pretty fundamental thing. Sell what people buy. So on the other hand, as we've gone over, it seems like the most profitable part of Amazon currently is public cloud. So folks are buying that as well.
I was wondering, can you just summarize this whole statement? Isn't it just as simple as this? Is like there is faster growth in public cloud.
Yes.
And there are plenty of people still buying and deploying private clouds.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like definitive. It's like that's the whole point.
I mean, all three of us and probably lots of these listeners, we go to all these companies that we're professionally responsible not to really talk about except in aggregate, as I'm about to do. And they have a lot of stuff on premise. And if you get the right kind of enterprise architects in the room, they can fill a day with telling you why it has to be on premise and like all of this stuff. And for the most part, like with their greenfield or the new applications, it doesn't need to be on premise. But as in other venues of my nonsense, I always joke, right? Like legacy is the stuff that makes all the money. And so currently the stuff that makes all the money, it seems to run on premise pretty well unless you sort of package it up and ship it off. But there's, obviously it's self-serving for all sorts of things for me in a weird way. I used to be known as the public cloud bigot at Dell, which was wonderful. But like now I guess I'm not that person. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I think the distinction between public and private is not really very helpful. Like I think it's fine to be like, should I be worrying about running this infrastructure on my own? Right. But then again, it like all the companies, all three of us and listeners to go to visit, they usually work with like a Verizon, IBM, and AT&T, some sort of gigantic, ginormous MSP IT outsourcer, right? They'll run stuff on their own, but they also have huge accounts with people like even HP. HP does a lot of this. Just run that stuff for you. And like, that's not really public cloud, right? But it's also not really private cloud, where like you own all the way down to the dirt and stuff. And so I think the more important conversation is just like what software you have in there running. Is it like cloud software? And like who really cares where it is? Like that's a decision you make for all sorts of other reasons.
I think the thing that everyone always misses though too is just around like if every industry was simultaneously disrupted at the same, at the same time, I guess being redundant there, but and then they were rebuilt, yeah, I think everything probably would be close to the public cloud. But like, the insurance company, the banking companies, the medical companies, it's like some of these systems are so intertwined that they can never really be fully taken out. Like, I mean, it's part of like, just like the people in the process, the system has become wedded to that business. And you really can't undo it without almost starting over. And I think, so yeah, if you're starting an insurance company today, you probably could do it all in public cloud. I don't think some of the larger ones, I mean, they can't, right? It's just impossible to pull that out. in any short amount of time. So
yeah.
that's why I think this art, to your point, this is why it's like it's always going to exist, like in some form, right? It won't grow as fast as public cloud, but it's always going to exist.
Right, and then your point, to reprise it or bring it up again, Brandon, is right. Is like, I mean, probably most of the high growth stuff that we know about is in public cloud, but there's probably single low double digit growth in the other one, in private cloud, right? And like, one of my many like corny laws is like, money is money, or what, you don't like money? It just
Cote's law. What, you don't like money?
That's right. I mean, it depends what kind of like. How about saying? Can I get away with saying?
You can get away with saying.
Or aphorism, or is that gussying it up?
Aphorism. Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Cote's aphorism. There's always money.
Yeah, I'll publish a book of nonsense aphorisms one day. It'll be great. Anyways, it's just like, it depends what kind of CAGR you want, right? Like if and like all sorts of things like that. But I think the responsible thing to do, if you're trying to figure out your strategy as both on the buy and the sell side, is assume at some point in the future it's all public cloud. You just don't know when. And so like basically monitor it closely, and like make sure you're not entrenching yourself further into. You see how my microphone keeps dropping? Make sure you're not entrenching yourself further into being stuck, right? This is like one of the little things I like to tell people when I'm talking about legacy, is like, and let this be a lesson to you. Right?
Someday you're going to be the only one left running AIX on Spark.
Yeah,
like to be that company.
The reason you asked me to talk about this boring ass topic of legacy is your fault, right? Like, make sure you don't like do this to yourself in the future.
Yes.
Or like the people who screwed you, leave this job before it happens. Like, I mean, it's just like, it's a good opportunity to remember that bowls of spaghetti are not desirable.
Yeah.
You're on a low carb diet.
Well, I mean, that's good advice to, the customers of compute, the customers of all this IT stuff. But if you're the vendor, that's when things get a little dicier. So the quote from Cisco is, you got to throw out the bluster, because, the reality is, it's like things are getting tighter and tighter. Fewer people, there is growth, but it's not the kind of growth you used to have. And it's not the kind of stuff that, being a public tech company, you're rewarded for. So,
yeah.
Big on Cisco. But
now they acquired that Clicker company, right?
Yeah.
Now I wrote this on Twitter before we started, but didn't Clicker used to be called something else? I mean, I remember back when I was doing like cloud strategy and M&A at Dell, like you talk to all these people, and I feel like at one point we talked with like Clicker people, right? But they weren't called that. But maybe I'm mixing it up. Like there's this whole substrata of companies, like, and you found some graphic that shows the leftover ones, right? Like Abaquo. We were always trying to figure those guys out. They're
well, yeah. So Clicker, I'm not exactly sure what they do. I mean, but then this graphic is like, hey, here are all the things that tie things together, and I'm like, I don't, I know what some of these companies do, and like, how are these things alike? I mean, one of these is like, okay, I get private cloud, I get that, and then another would be like compute manage or cloud management platform, and then there's like, oh, here's a database as a service. Those don't go together. So
for our video viewers, I will share our desktop so you can see that, because this is a good. Is there anything embarrassing in there before I share it? Nope. Okay. This is a good corporate strategy diagram. This is the kind of stuff that I used to have to make a lot. If you see it there, and this is pretty good. It's an interesting diagram about how you've got IBM, Oracle, Cisco, and a column I know nothing about. I have nothing to say about that column. You have Dell and EMC over there as well, which that would be a thing you would do in a strategy deck. But they have all of the cloud management, as we used to call them, and some of them are SoftLayer and VirtuoStream are the only like actual cloud companies in there, right? Like cloud.
No. There's Blue Box.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Is hosted private OpenStack. There's Nebula. Which
yeah.
You know,
Okay. I stand corrected, or I
there's
sit.
Piston. There's MetaCloud. Yeah, it's
so it has all of those types of cloud acquisitions that these four companies or soon to be companies made, and then some remaining ones. And there's like a bunch of notable logos missing, but again, going back again to the 2011 to 2013 era of cloud when I did strategy in it, like this is sort of the list. Like,
oh yeah, that's the list.
Yeah. I mean, of cloud management stuff, right? Like if you had a mandate to do something with cloud, we need a cloud strategy, and then the person left and gave you no more feedback. like this is a pretty good cut of what you would have come up with.
So each of these companies is trying to recreate their, hey, we have an on-prem solution, hey, we have a management tool for it, and then they go and look at what people do on public clouds, like, we need a database, we need some storage, we need some billing.
Yeah. There's not like, is it Embiotics? What's not Ruve Cohen's thing, but there's that other company that's like a Canadian company. Like they pop up every now and then I don't know. You got a bunch of other random stuff, and then there's always like the crazy person who's like, we should buy New Relic. Like that's another.
You're like, yeah, let's put a SaaS monitoring company into this enterprise stack.
But here's what would always happen. What tends to happen in these kind of conversations with your company, Matt Ray. You guys are too expensive. You're cut. You're out.
Oh, that's harsh. Well, and then they're like, we need some Cloud Foundry in here, and then they join the Cloud Foundry Foundation.
Yeah, you got to do that.
Yep.
All right. I'll stop sharing here.
Got to hide those corporate documents on the other tabs. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like hard to understand, how these different acquisitions get melded to product strategy. Because probably when you make an acquisition, it takes 9 months or longer for anything of value to really pop out of it. I mean, you mentioned Tudum, the Docker acquisition. They actually got value out of that pretty fast. Turned it around and rebadged it. And
now, what is that exactly? My teammates, they know what it is, but they're like, old goofy Uncle Cote, we're not going to tell him. So what is it? What is it that thing does? Because it's all like the Docker cloud has been released, which it's basically like a broker for deploying Docker workloads on different IaaSes, right? I got that right?
Yep.
Brokers, baby.
That's
another popular column not pictured on there is the whole cloud broker theorem. We are going to broker you using resources and then create a marketplace of moving workloads around to optimize them.
Yeah, so the whole cloud management platform kind of melds into that in some cases. Like, pretty much every enterprise company has I call them, we call them CMPs, cloud management platforms that, RightScale and Stratius, those guys, VMware's vRealize automation platform. It's a UI for managing infrastructure, and then it lets you move stuff between clouds and probably fronts on the billing and throw some access controls onto it, backs it with Active Directory, that kind of fun stuff.
That's the dream, Matt Ray.
That's the dream.
The dream.
And literally,
that's what each of those columns is.
Is anyone seeing a customer do it live, like really legitimately using that?
So, oh wait, are we recording?
I'm just trying to think about it. I just think
I have seen them in the wild. So
someone's done it.
There's literally like, there's probably 100 of them out there, and there's tons of startups in that space, and it's clearly somebody must be making money in that space because there's a lot of them. The 900-pound gorilla in the room is VMware. They made an acquisition 2-3 years ago, and that became vRealize automation. And at least from my standpoint, like dealing with customers, that seems to be the number one. Number two is probably maybe it's Red Hat. I don't know. It's distant off to that, but
I put this in the category of 3D televisions. It's like the television market, when they went to flat screen, they're like, oh my God, we just made so much money transitioning everyone from CRTs to flat screen. We need another one of those. And people are like, yep, it's going to be 3D TV. And it's like, no, actually, no one really wanted that. So I feel like the same thing. Like, so there's hundreds of people chasing it. I'm like, yeah, because people really want this to be a problem. But like, I just don't, it's like, no. But everyone's like, no, I'm fine. I'll just run it off. And then, you know what? If I have to switch, I'll just switch manually.
And I think this ties some threads together, right? So the thread that goes that there's plenty of money in private cloud still, right? I think that's highly related to this idea of a CMP, which is if you could go to all of your current accounts and say, I have a CMP for you, right? And they would say, like, that sounds great. I want it, right? Which is to say, like it's sort of like incremental improvement of the current paradigm. There's your synergistic buzz phrase of the moment. And so like it's easy to understand, like it makes sense. And I think this is why VMware is so popular, right?
No, see, developers don't want it.
Oh, well, hold on. I wasn't saying this is good. I wasn't saying this is good, right? But that's like if you're selling to your existing, and that's why it seems like there's so much money. Is it's just like, well, I'm just going to sell them incremental improvement. Now, the problem is, as Matt Ray said, it turns out that's not what you want. That's really not like the new thing. It's just like it's not even old wine in new bottles. It's just sort of like spitting back out your wine into the same bottle, putting a new label on it. And like, I think the issue becomes, and this is like all of us in this weird cloudy kind of space, like we try to tell people over and over again, like you do all of this IT stuff differently, or your new stuff, you do it differently. And you're not just sort of like managing workloads and moving them around and all this stuff. Like it's not exactly the same thing. And to be fair, like I think all of these columns and people in this space would say they want to do both of it. But I think that first kind of like incremental improvement thing is why people see so much value and revenue in that kind of market. Is like you just go to your current accounts and you can just sell them cloud instantly. They understand it. It's not challenging or complicated. I mean, it's like the equivalent of just like auto-tune and pop music for infrastructure management. It's just like, just pump that shit out and people will buy it. Like that's what they want. Don't challenge them with a bunch of Bob Dylan junk.
Well, it puts like the vSphere, sort of, UI on the cloud. Or vCenter, where it's like, oh, I'm just going to be managing some VMs on the cloud, and I'll click around, and I got my billing, and I can track everything, and
and also to be clear, I mean, I think doing both of those things is fine, and in fact, probably reality, right? But what gets annoying, and this is why, for as much maligned as like bimodal IT and all that stuff is, like I think people generally attack that idea if they have a profit to be had by that idea not existing. But that model is good because it's basically like existing IT and new IT, right? Like we got a bunch of shit written around it and other ways of understanding it. But like you're going to set up a separate team of people who manage your existing IT. And then you have another team of people who manage your new IT. And then all the like excited cloud natives are like, oh my God, why don't you just do everything the new way? And like, sure, that sounds good too. But like you gotta do all this stuff.
Yeah, I think the real attack on bimodal IT is it's just like nobody wants to do, the old stuff. And what you're describing is way black and white, and the real world is super gray. And
sure.
And simplifying to two things is still too simple. Maybe.
I mean, yeah. I agree with you with the snarky proviso of like, I'm pretty sure most everyone we worked with at BMC wanted to do things the old way. They were very happy with keeping up with the old way of doing things.
You mean the folks who called us the distributed guys?
Yeah.
Like, oh, you must be on the third floor.
Yeah, y'all are on the third platform, aren't you? You talk like third platform people.
Yeah,
but I think there's a lot of people who would be happy to keep the lights on.
Oh yeah, no, and VMware has done a really good job of selling it. We definitely have a lot of customers who are using that, and my team's written a lot of tooling around it to encourage developers to stay on task. This is the workflow up above wants. Quit trying to run away to the public cloud.
Yeah. I mean, so to wrap up before we get to recommendations, I mean, just to summarize, I mean, my position is not that like the what is it, mode 1, whatever you want to call it, that the old stuff is bad or whatever. It's just that like you don't need to confuse things by like calling that cloud or whatever. Virtualization, and we'll be done. You can make your billions and trillions of dollars doing that, and us cloud people will have a good time making our single-digit billions or whatever, or double-digit billions. We'll call it a day, no problem, right? And in the future, one day these things might merge. They may not. So what? Who cares, right? Like, but it's annoying to like cross the streams on those two things. It just makes life more difficult for all of us. I think. I don't know. So, what do you recommend this week, Brandon?
I recommend another podcast that I ran across. It's called Track Changes, and it's from the guys that founded this company, Postlight. It has a sufficiency technology and culture, but they kind of come at it from like a designer product kind of aspect, and they in fact they helped build Medium at one point. So they the first couple episodes they talk a little bit about how they did that, and then take their take on technology and product development today. So I think it's a good, they have a sufficient experience and snark to keep it very interesting, very pragmatic. So if you're looking for something new to listen to, check out Track Changes.
That sounds good. Yourself, Matt Ray? I am looking at your recommendation.
Oh, okay.
Here, let me turn on the screen sharing again.
Wow.
I actually do not want people to watch the video of this because I think that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous?
Yeah, whatever.
Oh, man.
Look at that. Look at this thing in action. This is a real beauty.
My recommendation is activate power mode for the Atom editor. This is a plugin for Atom that as you type and delete and do any input or output on your Atom editor, it makes little explosions. It's probably
it's
not
like jackhammering.
Yeah. It's probably not something you want to use for your day-to-day editor. But can you imagine how much awesome your webinars are going to be when you have that going on in your demos? You're like, look at me go! I'm making cloud. Bam!
That is good stuff. I like it.
That's my recommendation.
All right. No more screen sharing. All right. Well, my recommendation this week is a little program I like to call ScreenFlow. I've been experimenting with using it and doing some interesting stuff. Mm-hmm. And ScreenFlow basically is a screencast recorder, another word that I don't think anyone uses anymore, along with Web 2.0 and RDF and the semantic web, things like that. But it's nice. It basically will record the audio in your screen of whatever you're doing, so you can record demos. And what I would suggest, this is what I do, is whenever you rehearse a presentation, you should just record it with ScreenFlow, and then you can post it, right? Like if you think about it, like that's a great, because recording presentations in the OS 10 versions of PowerPoint just never works. It's just a shit show.
Yeah.
Right. So don't waste your time. But you just pop open ScreenFlow and you can do that. And it's got a great video editor. The video editor in there, having edited a lot of videos, is much better than what you might pay like hundreds or thousands of dollars for.
Yeah, ScreenFlow's very nice.
But yeah, you should check that out. It's good stuff. So with that, as always, this has been replacing all the windows in Matt Ray's house. No, wait. That's not what this is. This is Software Defined Talk, available at softwaredefinedtalk.com. Now, I've got a couple little ads here. If you go to cote.io/pivotal, you can check out all this stuff. First, we've got the CF Summit coming up. I should know the date, but it's sometime in the next few months. You come see people talk about Cloud Foundry and everything. I think if you use the code CF16COTE, you can get 20% off registering for it. So you should go to that. I know one person's already registered for it. And if you go to cote.io/pivotal, you can find that. And also on there, we still have my little booklet about how to not to screw up your cloud strategy you can get, and some free books on microservices and Cloud Foundry and all those things. But go check those out. And you can find a link to those and all the other stuff we talked about in the show notes, which are at cote.io/SDT57. So that's don't put the
how do you spell that?
That's an art. You go to kote.io/SDT57 and you can find all the show notes. And with that, thanks for all the tweets we've been getting recently. There's been a lot of great feedback, which we appreciate. And what with the current financial state of our sponsorships, I think that's all that we're running on. And go to a DevOps Days. We'll see everyone next time.
Bye.